Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello, I'm Jenny D. I'm one half of Illustrated Insights. Welcome to topic 2 of the Neurodiverse Creative Journal. This week we're looking at the story so far. Do you have a neurodiverse diagnosis? That is so hard to say. Or maybe you just suspect you're neurodiverse. Doesn't really matter. What's led you to this point? What was it like for you growing up? What was school like for you? These are all questions you can be thinking about as you watch me create my page, and then you can journal. I gave myself 2 big pages to journal on for this one because I knew it was going to be a long subject. And I thought the best way to do that was with a flip out page made to look like a book. So come and watch my process. You can follow along or you can just enjoy watching. Let's get started. I had a little bit of a plan for this page, so just a little sketch. And then I'm going to get started in my usual way just by writing my feelings out with a watercolour pencil. I started off not being in the mood at all to create, but that quickly changed. I have to mention here I'm not a therapist, but I am a teacher who specialises in neurodiverse students, and I've been creative journaling for a long time. So I hope you'll agree I'm perfectly qualified to make a video leading you through a creative journaling process. I did start off writing quite a lot of negative things on my page, and I did change it up to more positive things, but if you do happen to have a lot of negative things on your page, don't worry. You're going to cover over it with other layers anyway. Just think about it as letting go onto the page. Even at this stage, I was thinking about the topic. So I added some thoughts on my life so far as a neurodiverse individual. Then I started a new layer using the water-soluble crayons from Inktense. I was starting to think this page might have a kind of old-worldy look. So I chose these browns and terracottas because I was trying to reflect the old-worldy feel. I think because I have ADHD, I tend to be quite spontaneous, which I guess is the flip side of being impulsive. So most of my pages tend to be quite intuitive. I make them up as I go, with only a rough plan, if any. Funnily enough though, when I do these voiceovers, I tend to write myself a script. I'm not sure if it's the brain just not being able to find the right words, but I really dislike the stumbling over words. So anyway, you can see that I've watered down those crayons to spread the colour around, and now I'm just giving it a really good dry over with the heat gun. For this topic I knew I'd need a lot of space to write, so I'm making some fold out pages on top of the book pages. I grabbed myself some more of the same paper I'd used to create this journal. Then I cut it down to the same size as my double page and drew the open book outline. I looked at images on Pinterest to get the right shape. And then I cut out the shape to make the top pages of my opening book. So now I have to repeat the process from the background on these fold out pages. I'm just writing pretty much nonsense now on these pages with the watercolour pencil. It just needs to look like there's some writing in the background. This time when I put the colour on, I was a little bit lighter with the crayons and heavier with the water, and I left off the terracotta. I wanted this to sort of look a bit lighter than the background, and of course dried it off well. And on the underpage of the flip out page, I didn't even bother with the writing. I just knew that I just wanted a light sort of brown colour. This won't be visible when you first open the page. I could have used a tea staining, but I didn't want to use too much water. I did actually end up using a lot of water anyway. I gave it a good crease. And then I get ready to stick it into my journal page. This is the only tape I trust in my journals. I've had over the years a lot of trouble with cheaper tapes. This is an archival framers tape. I'll leave the product details in the description. So I place the flip out page in the crease, then I fold it over and smooth the tape where the two pages meet. I do this on both sides of the flip out page. Now I'm not going to paint over this tape. You can, but it's not going to be visible from the top, and I kind of like how it looks like an old mended book, so I'm going to leave it, just trim it to size. I'm using a sponge from a child's mark making kit here. It just seems to work really well, so I've put some protective sheets behind my top page and I'm just sponging in some very dark brown paint. I just kind of want to define the edges of the page with this brown paint. And then I use a slightly lighter brown just to soften that brown sponging and dry it off really well with the heat gun. I had a heap of that light brown paint left, so I just use it on the background, just putting in little crisscross marks just to give the background another layer. I'm still working instinctively here, and I can see that that background really needs a little more substance, so I'm going to add some marks using this mark making tool that I got from the kids set. First of all I tried just rubbing it in the paint, but didn't get a very good result, so I had to actually paint the paint on top of that little stamp, and then I got some good results. A heap of that cream that I've been using to make marks, and I thought it'd be perfect just to lighten up that page, that flip out page on top. I don't want to waste paint. But then I felt like I'd gone in too heavy with the light paint, so I used some water to sort of pull it back a little bit. That's one of the problems with working intuitively, but at least if you make a mistake you can always fix it up. And I actually liked the way the water sort of blended it all together. So was it a mistake, or was I just working intuitively? I wanted some more marks in the background, so I got this jar and some very pale pink, smushed the jar in the pale pink and stamped it onto my background. I make sure I go over the page a little bit. Some of the marks going off the page just gives a little bit of interest and helps the eye travel around a page. And of course, I dry each layer well. Now it's time to make the top layer look a little bit more like a book. Georgia designed this great stencil which we've called Script, and it's just these lines of positive affirmations about self. It's a very fine stencil, so I'm pushing the paint through. It's just a burgundy acrylic. I'm pushing the paint through in a stippling motion. I want it to look like there's writing on the book, but you can't really tell what it says. You can buy this terrific stencil in our Etsy shop, and I'll leave the link in the description. There's going to be a floral element to this page, so I'm going through my collage papers. I made these ones earlier using jelly printing techniques. The greens are going to be the leaves of the floral element, and when I find the colours that I'm happy with, I start by making some leaf shapes with my watercolour pencil. Then I cut them out, and I try some arrangements on my page. They never look the same when they're stuck down, but that's okay, it's a process. Whatever happens, happens. I use a satin gel media and a clean makeup sponge to glue down the collage elements. I just spread the media over my page, then I put the leaves down onto the page, and then I put the media back over the top to make sure that everything is sealed and in place. Now it's time to make those roses. If you're not feeling confident about your painting, you could try using some pictures that you've cut out of patterned paper, but I do encourage you to try. These are quite easy. You start with just a circle of different colours, so I've got some light peaches and pinks and some dusty pinks. I don't wash my brush much in this stage, because when you get a mix of different colours on your brush, it can give you some really lovely and surprising results. And once again, I haven't really planned where these are going. I'm just making sure that some are larger than others and that I have some circles overlapping. And I put one in each of 3 corners so that the composition had some balance but also some interest. Out comes the handy heat gun to dry off those circles. And to make the petals, all you do is get a slightly darker colour and make some crescent shapes around the circle. Try not to put your centre right in the middle of the flower, because not all flowers face the centre. Some of them face upwards, some sideways. And once again, I'm rarely washing my brush because I like to get the mixes of colours which make more interesting petals and more interesting flowers. I just keep adding strokes and different colours until I'm happy with them. I can actually paint fairly realistic flowers, but I love these abstract flowers because they're really quick and there's no need to study any details. They're just an impression of a flower. Then for the centres, I get some of that cream paint, and I started using the end of my brush to make the dots, but I wasn't quite happy with that, so I switched to a dotting tool. I just made 3 little dots in the middle of each flower, and then I used the dotting tool just to add a few interesting dots here and there just to increase interest. So the top page is looking pretty good now, but doesn't look much like a book yet. But I can fix that by tracing around the pages with a dark pencil and then add some shading to look like the rest of the pages. I used a watercolour pencil here because it's what I had handy. And again, I looked at Pinterest just for ideas on shapes and just to get a little bit of a reference of what the book might look like. Then a little black paint makes the book background more defined. Looking much more like a book now. So I used my trusty printer to print out this title. The font is called Old English Text, and I think it's included with Microsoft Word. Out comes the satin gel media and the sponge, and it's all glued down and dried off. I need to blend in that stark copy paper now, so I grab a water-soluble crayon. I go around each section, add some water and blend it out to soften it. And it just doesn't look like one of my pages unless it's got a little bit of glint to it. So I add a little gold wash to the edges of the pages and a more concentrated thin gold line just on the capital letters of the title. Here comes the meaningful part. Time to journal. I had to think about what my childhood was like growing up as a neurodiverse individual, and especially what it meant for me at school. But when I was growing up and going to school in the 70s, there really wasn't very much known about ADHD. I didn't even know it was a thing until I went to university and was learning about it as a teacher. And then when my son was diagnosed, so many things about his behaviour were so familiar because they were things that I did as a child. I decided to go and see the psychologist, and I was diagnosed with adult ADHD. It was something that I'd always lived with, always coped with, but now I could understand some of my behaviours and I could actually develop some methods of managing the issues. That's not to say that I'm always successful at that. Okay, enough of my rambling. It's your turn now. Get your journal out and write your story. What was it like for you growing up? When did you know? Did you get a diagnosis? And if you did, what does that mean for you now? Take as much time and as many pages as you need to write it all down. If you followed my process or done something creative of your own, we'd love to see it. We really want to grow a fun and interactive community of journalists. Hop on over to our Facebook group, there's a link in the description. And here's my finished page. If you enjoyed watching, it'd be great if you could click on the like button. The next topic is My Peeps, and it's all about your support network. So subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss it. See you next week.